Hi, this is Em. Now that we've completed our homework, so to speak, for our adhesion and strength and discoloration tests as it relates to pressed flowers on polymer clay tiles, and as well as the water-resistant test that I did a little bit earlier today, and I'll link to those videos down in the comments section if you're interested in that. I'm going to do a little bit of actual demonstration and focusing in on the more fun part, which is now we've created some things on the clay tiles, and we might want to do something with them, but we want to protect them first. And so having said that, we're going to take a look at a couple things. These tiles on here are already basically done. I've already protected them with things. And some of these more glossy surfaces are things that I did with the Dimensional Magic, primarily, or something shiny. And if you go back and look at all my tests, you'll see what's shiny and what's not. So if you want a shiny finish, then use that type of thing. This was the perfect paper gloss medium, or gloss adhesive that I talked about in the last video. Gives kind of a shiny texture, but it works very well. It keeps the integrity of the flower. Something like this, for example, this is the future, and nothing but the future. This had the diamond accents on one of them. Anything that is kind of a low profile, non-glossy sheen is future. This is future, 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 future. This had multi situations, and I talked about them in other videos. Future. This was before I did my test, I talked about this in other videos, so I won't get into detail, but this has got a bunch of different things on it. This originally had Dimensional Magic on it. So again, I just want to do a little show and tell. This is future, and this is future. And for what I'm going to use them for, which is mosaics and or embellishments on, you can use them on cards, you can put them on wood, you can just, once you make these tiles, you can either do a polymer clay mosaic or mix them in with regular mosaic, or you can use them as embellishments for any number of things, no matter what you're doing. You could even put a hole in here, drill a little hole, and put ribbon in here and use it a tag on a package, and put a adhere down a piece of fancy paper as a to from on the back. So these have many applications once you make the actual display. So you'll see that even with a future, that you can put your hand on them. Now, if I take a scraping tool or something, I would be able to scrape them off, but most normal people aren't going to say, oh, let me see what I need to do to get it off of here. And even this has with the future. Now, if I was going to do something where it was going to get a little bit more activity and be touched more, I'd probably put a layer of Dimensional Magic or perfect paper on top. And then what I've talked about in other videos, where if something's too shiny for my liking, because sometimes I like shiny and sometimes I don't, I use this, and so far it's been compatible with everything here that I've tested, so certainly do your own test, but I found it to work, is this 2 times. So I'll use the semi-gloss or the matte and just do a real light spray when I want to take down the shine on something. So that will work. But I have not, of course, done that here. Anyway, so that gives you an idea of what some of these tiles look like. And all of these tiles, I put the flowers on the raw clay and I baked them in the oven. And you can see that the flowers did hold up at 275 for no more than 15 minutes. And I've got a toaster oven, and I baked them on the well, I baked them on this clay tile, and I did not put any kind of tint over them. I see a lot of people talking about covering them with an aluminum tint. I've never done that yet, and I haven't had any problems, but certainly it's something to be aware of if you do. Okay, we're going to set these aside. And we're going to work on a couple of these. These two have already had a layer of Future put on, but I wanted to put Perfect Pearls on here and build up a little bit more of a thickness, because Future it's like nail polish in the sense that it doesn't put a thick coating on it. It's water resistant and it protects it, and you really don't have to do anything else on there if you don't want to. But I'm just going to use this as a demonstration piece and to show you that. And then this one, the reason why I'm going to just a minute, let me get something to put this on so that we don't blur out on the video. I guess I don't have something. But the reason why I'm going to use dimensional magic on this is I want to build up a layer, because I've got these really cute little polymer clay flowers and stars, and there's not a butterfly on here, but I bought a bunch of little polymer clay bits. They're already made. I didn't make these, and they sit up a little bit. I don't know if you can see the ridge on them. But they, like here, there's a little bit of a ridge where you could catch your fingernail or something on there. So if I put the dimensional magic on, it will build up a layer and seal that up. So that's what we're going to do there. And then this one, for example, this one, I really do need to get a board. Do I have a board? I must have a board here somewhere. Okay. So this one you can see, although I put the flowers on before I baked it, I did just put a little dab of glue in the center, and I did roll it in a little bit, but they didn't go down into the clay very much. And so you can see these are not adhered. So I'm going to show you what I do about that. I'm going to use Future on it. So we'll do that. And I don't know if I'll do all of these on camera, but all of these do need to be done. So we'll just take a few minutes to do a little demonstration and see where we go. All right, so we have our water. I've got paintbrushes over here, paper towel, tweezers, toothpicks. That's really about all we should need, and then the mediums that we're going to use. Now the first one that we're going to do is going to be this pansy. Let me bring the camera down. I don't have a very sophisticated setup here, so it's going to shake. Let's come down. Hello, can I go? Okay, that's pretty good. And I think at this point I'm going to take all these off of the tile. I'll just put this over here. Okay. Let's move these out of the way. Get them on camera. This is what we're going to work on first. And we are going to use the Perfect paper. So I'm twisting the cap and bring my work stuff down here so that you can see. I'm twisting the cap, and I usually have a little work paper because whenever I'm using dimensional magic or glossy X or something, I do a little out because I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little air bubble there, and so I try to get as many air bubbles out before I start. And now I'm just going to, and that's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to get a paintbrush, and I'm using a synthetic paintbrush. It has a little backbone. I'm going to wet the brush, and then I'm going to dry the excess water off. And now I'm just going to I'm starting at the center and I'm pulling off. This will self-level as long as I don't overwork it. And I'm going to wipe some excess paint off because I don't want this much. And now I'm going to start smoothing and wiping excess. I always seem to put too much on and then I have to wipe some off. Okay. Way too much on. Okay. All right. So now let's just smooth it down. And let it self-level. I will finish self-leveling off here in a little while. But you see where it puts down a little bit of a gloss. Okay, now this one we are going to use Dimensional Magic. I'm going to put the brush in the water so it doesn't harden up. This is Dimensional Magic. Oops, same thing. I'm going to run a little bead to make sure there's no air bubbles. Now this one I'm not going to brush. I'm going to, I treat this more like resin. That's probably enough. Put the lid back on. And now I'm going to use a toothpick. And I just, it will kind of dome a little bit like resin. In other words, it typically won't go off the sides. And so far I'm liking Dimensional Magic more than Glossy Accents or Diamond Glaze, although my second runner-up would be Diamond Glaze, just because it seems to play best with the flowers on the clay. I think if you were doing paper or wood or something where you didn't have to worry about reactions of clay, it wouldn't really matter. You could use whatever you want, but if you've been watching all my prior videos where we did our homework on the different mediums, you'll see why I'm using this and not Diamond Glaze or Glossy Accents. Although I do like probably Glossy Accents is my go-to for gluing little rhinestones and things on to items. Now I'm just looking down low for any air bubbles. There's a little air bubble here. And you can get as particular as you want, but I'm going to leave it. The other thing that you want to look out for with Diamond Glaze or any of those kinds is make sure you get along the edge and run, because sometimes you think you've got it and then you don't. Okay. So just run it along, make sure. Okay. So, I don't know. Let's see how I'm going to pick this up. There's still an air bubble there that's bothering me. And a lot of times for air bubbles, you got to kind of take and move them to a corner and then pull them off. But because this is a test and I'm on camera, I won't obsess about that. The problem is going to be I should have done it on a separate paper so I can move it. Alright. That's done. I do see a little air bubble here. Okay. Now for this has a piece of clay on there too. I should probably also do Dimensional Magic, but I won't do it on camera because now you've seen me do it. But that's probably what I'll do here, because it's got this sits up just enough and I didn't get it embedded down. What I do when I put the flowers on is I put the flowers on, and then I roll a little bit. But you've got to be careful that you use your finger and be gentle, because what you can do is if you roll or you push too hard, the flower will break up like you're using crackle paint or something. So you do want to watch your techniques when you're putting them on there. But this did not get embedded down into the clay. You can see where it still sits up above. So I will do that off camera, and that's probably the medium that I use. The other technique that I wanted to show you is I'm going to use a brush, and I'm going to wipe it off because it had that perfect paper that we painted on. And we are going to use the Future. And you saw that big huge bottle. Well, I put it into one of these smaller containers, and then I can dip my brush in it. So I'm dipping my brush in, and I'm wiping off the excess because I don't want it dripping. And what I'm going to do is, remember these petals aren't glued down. I'm going to get and that's why you want to brush with some backbone. And I'm going to get underneath the petal, and I'm just going to work my way around under the petal, and you got to be really gentle here. And then I'm going to use my finger, and I'm going to smooth out. Okay, and now I'm going to get a little bit more, wipe the excess off. And I'm going to see over here, let me get it on camera. Now, that petal broke, but once we glue it down, you're not going to notice it, so that's going to be okay. I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, and like I say, it's important to smooth from the center out so that you don't get air bubbles. And that's really, I'm going to dry my brush off. I'm going to use a real dry brush and just do a quick little thin pull out. And then we're going to let it dry. Now I'm going to do another coat of something on top after that, but right now our goal was to get these flower petals to become one with the clay. But that will need a second layer of something. And once you use the Future, you don't have to use Future as your second layer if you don't want to. You can, but you can put anything over it. You know, the diamond glaze or the perfect paper, or any of the polymer clay friendly things that we've tried. The Minwax polyacrylic. This one, again, it's got a butterfly, so it probably needs something thicker, but I think what we're going to do in the meantime, since we have the Future open, is I'm going to give it a quick, I like to give like the first coat in a lot of instances, a thin layer of the Future, just to get it water resistant and to kind of get everything adhered. And I'm going to wipe some of the excess off because these are very sheer flowers, and hopefully they're not wet enough that if there's any air under there, they start buckling and curling. And again, I'm pulling from the center out on the flowers to try to alleviate any bubbles that might get up under there. Kind of working it. Okay, so we'll set that aside. That'll need another layer. That's after this cures and dries. I would probably leave it for a day. I'll do this today, and then tomorrow I'll go back and figure out what I want to do. And then same thing here. I'm just going to do some Future as a preliminary wash, and I don't think any of these petals on the ends are up. So I'm just going to do a light wash, hopefully not get any, just to kind of seal it and cure it in there before the next layer. I'd say I use Future as a base wash 80% of the time, and then do something else on top. Again, this is probably going to need a thicker layer of something because it's got all these little polymer clay pieces, but I'm going to do Future thin layer. Kind of like doing resin. I figure if you put a protective layer down that you know should work pretty good first. On this piece here, I did not put Future down, and I should have before I put the diamond glaze on. You'll notice that the buttercup is going translucent, which is kind of a symptom of what happens with regular resin too. And I did not put anything to protect that. Now, I've noticed in some instances it'll go translucent, but after it dries, it'll come back from being as translucent. So we'll see after it's, or I'll see after it's dry. I don't know if I'll do a video about it. And there's nothing wrong with it. I like it. All the translucency does in this case is you can see the leaves underneath. You can see the outline. So the flowers itself aren't discoloring. It's not a discolor issue. It's strictly that you can see the layer underneath it, which I think is kind of cool in certain situations. It's kind of like building up your layers in multimedia. So that can be a nice effect when you're going for that. And the last one that we haven't done yet, and again, I'm just going to lay down a layer of Future while I have it out, and I'm completing this phase, and we are going to just do a thin. I don't have any issues of anything popping up that need to be addressed. Everything is sitting pretty good. Now, there were a couple things off camera, just to let you know, and I think this was an example of one of them, where after it came out of the oven, sometimes a stem or something wouldn't be adhered down. And so all you do, if you can raise it up at all, is just raise it up enough to put a dab of glue underneath and then glue it down. If it's something bulky like a stem or something. I've noticed on some of the, for example on this guy, when it came out of the oven, this part of the stem was not embedded in the clay enough to keep it down. So I had to go in with a speck of glue underneath and glue it down so that it would stay right in contact with the clay before I put a top coat on. So sometimes you will want to spot glue things. So these are all done. They're all ready for another coat of something, except for these are done. I see a couple of bubbles in here. I don't know if it's too late to address them. I'm going to try. Okay, that seemed to work. You have a short window with which to try to do something. The other thing I do too is I cover these, just like I do resin. I will take it upstairs and cover it with something so that dust doesn't get on it, because it's going to take a while for this to dry. Dimensional magic is a lot like applying resin in that sense, the way you work it out, and then you've got the bubbles to deal with. Although it's really not bad for bubbles, but anyway, okay. So I'm going to move these aside. The other thing that I want to talk about is something that happened that was kind of a situation where when you put flowers on clay, they don't always come out of the oven as nice as the ones that I just showed you, which I thought did pretty good. Here's an example of a tile where I had blue larkspur on the tile. And because blue larkspur has, can have several different layers of petals, although these petals are all adhered down fairly decent, but the blue ones weren't. Yeah, these are all adhered down pretty good. But what happened was that after it baked, the loose petals that weren't part of the base that was contacting the clay, they curled up and crinkled really bad to the point they were extremely brittle. So you could take your finger and just squish them into dust. And so what I did, because I really like this tile what this modeling is I took the white clay and then I took soft pastels and then I marbled it in the clay, and then I rolled it out, and then I put the flowers on. So I really like the background, so I don't want to throw it away. And the thing about it is if you just put some flowers on and it comes out of the oven and you don't like it, you can, in this case, I was just able to get up under there with the tweezers and lift the flowers off. And even further into that, you can take and you can gently sand. There was some blue up here that I didn't want because I don't know what my new arrangement's going to be. And so I just sanded it off. And there was some blue over here that I knew I didn't want, sand it off. So just take some gentle sandpaper, and I could actually take this whole thing off and start with a fresh slate if I wanted to. And I didn't do that because I don't have a problem with these little coral bells. I think I can work with those. And I don't mind some of that foliage in the background. So I think we'll be able to cover that up with something like this, and we'll put some, and then I'm going to put some, and then I'm going to put some more greenery and stuff in there. But I think that this can be salvaged just fine. So what I thought I'd do is lay down the basic premise while we're on camera, just so you can see how I'm going to address that. Let me put this future away before I spill it. And while I know that matte Mod Podge will not pass the water resistance test, I am going to use it to glue down the flowers onto the clay because I know that it's compatible with the clay and it doesn't brown things up. And because I'm going to be putting future and then something else on the top of these, by the time they're sealed in, the matte Mod Podge isn't going to be a concern because it's going to be just such a bit player in the under structure of things that I'm not worried about its water resistance. And something else I want to show you while we're thinking about it is here's some tiles that I did specifically for doing post-baking arrangements. So here I rolled out the clay, and again you can see where I put the marbling with the soft pastels, and I rolled out the clay, and then I took a frame stamp and put some blue stays on, and actually this isn't stays on, this is archival, because it doesn't run with water. So I put some archival and I stamped it onto the clay, and I did the same thing here. So you can see there's a little dimension to the frame because it goes down in. And then this one was just white clay, and then I baked it, and then after it came out of the oven, which was just plain white, I used some shimmer acrylic paint, and then I dabbed it on to give it kind of a marbly, wispy, cloudy type feel to it. So these three are ready to have flowers put on, and I will probably, depending upon the success or failure of what we're going to do here, because I'm testing it. I haven't used this technique yet. I haven't put flowers on baked clay yet. So depending upon those tests, that will kind of depend on how I put the flowers on here. So we know that it's possible. It's just what we're going to use to adhere it with. And then, of course, this can be either vertical or horizontal as far as the arrangement that you might want to make. So I'm going to get a paintbrush, which I'll use the same one that we've used before. I'm going to dry it off. And for this, I am going to get a piece of scrap paper. And, okay. Well, I'm just simply going to do a preliminary arrangement, which is kind of what we saw before, something like this. But before I glue these down, I want to put something in the middle. And when I was going through my scraps of what to do, I found this leaf, and what this is a leaf that because I also like to gild things. I've got all kinds of gilding leaves. Anyway, that's a whole other subject. So I put the appropriate type of glue that you use for gilding things on here. And this is a variegated, like a varigloss or something like that. It's got all kinds of different colors in it. And I thought it would be fun to use that as a background. But before I do that, I'm going to cut it up into pieces because it's too big, and I want, and this is the only piece I did as a test, and I want it to go further. So what we're going to do is I'm going to see where this hits and how we want this behind. So I'll probably do something like that. Something like that. And I don't know if we're going to put anything there or not. Maybe. Okay. You can fast forward, you know, I'm sure that most of you know how to use the timeline to fast forward, so certainly feel free to do that. All right. I'm going to put something around here. Something around there, something around there. I don't know how these colors go, but we don't care. We're just playing. We're seeing how the mediums work, so whatever happens, happens. Okay, I'm just going to start gluing. And I think I'm going to take the biggest piece first. And what I'm doing when I'm using wet medium such as this, just grab it in a real small section, go over here to this and dip your brush down. So I'm going to put this off camera, but when I'm going over, I'm going for the matte Mod Podge. I'm getting it a little on the bristles, and then I am simply going to stroke it on and get a thin coat. And then I'm going to put it down. And I'm going to put it here. And then I'm going to gently use my finger and press. And I'm going to do it again. Find a clean part of the paper, don't put it back in the where I just did that. And I'm going to do that. Okay. And I think I will put this little piece right there. You see, I had just enough time to squiggle it a little bit. Okay. I don't know. I'm not sure if I want. See this little leaf there? I just took it off. I just scraped these little tiny pieces off. I don't want it there. And I don't want this one here either. It just looks out of place because it's not attached to anything. Okay. I feel like I need another piece Oh, I'm almost out of this leaf. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit more. Okay. Alright. Let's see if that... Yeah. Okay, so now I am going to glue this down. Let's see if I'm on camera. Find a little spot to hold it by. Got a fresh piece of paper here. Gonna get a little bit more glue this time. And I'm starting from where I'm holding it, and I'm working my way out. And I don't want a lot on there, but I do want it coated. And now I'm going to figure out how I want to place it. I'm not going to have much time. Okay. You're not going to be able to move it much once you get it down. Once you're not going to have much time to move it down. And then I think I'll put this right there. Only something needs to go back behind there. I think that's why I brought over these guys, because it will act as a barrier. Okay, let's tack down some hopefully we can get it up off the paper before it holds tight. Look for an air pocket. Okay. Oops. All right. I'm going to put another one up over here. Okay. All right. And then I still had that piece of leaf left. And I'm thinking that I don't know if it needs to something more over here or not. If I'm trying too hard. Maybe we'll hold that thought. So now I'm going to put this down. And I'm going to bring it just so that, well, I don't have enough working time. I was trying to bring this so that this thing will touch there. Okay. All right. For the most part. Okay. And then we're going to put this up here. under here. Use this stem to touch there to have something that it's coming out of. Okay. All right, so you get the idea, and that works pretty good. And the point back to the matte Mod Podge, even though we know that it's not water resistant, is that it's going to be embedded under the flower, and then I'm going to be using Future or some other mediums on top, and it'll be more than one layer. So I'm not really worried at the end of the day about something getting down to the to affecting the Mod Podge finish. It'll help to make it water resistant when I do that. I'm not done with this. I'll be adding some more embellishments. I'll probably break apart some oregano florets and put those on as some accents, and then I may put a little bit more leaf structure there. So I'll do that off camera. But the biggest thing is that you see that you can use a medium and paint it on. I'm going to put this in the water so that it doesn't get hard. And it doesn't have to be matte Mod Podge. You can use anything that you like, but this is my go-to for anything like that. And just be as creative as you want to. This application will work not only, like I said, on clay, but paper and wood, and you can even adhere things to metal, but you want to make sure you use something that's metal. I wouldn't use the matte Mod Podge to put flowers on metal. I just don't think that would be a good medium, but something that works for metal. And we've seen enough demonstration videos on. If you go back on all my test videos, I've even tested a lot of these things that I've shown you on metal and glass and resin to see what adheres. So check those out. All right, so I guess I'll let you go from now. Let's bring this up and get a close-up of what we've done. See that leafing? It looks beautiful. And then I'll add some more. Like I say, I'll be filling in some of these areas here that still need some work. But that's how you can take a clay tile when you don't have success with your pressed flowers. Scrape them off, sand it down what you don't want, and just start over. Don't throw your whole tile away, especially if you like the tile. So thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.